There was a book written by Larry Keeling, and it's called The 10 Types of Innovation. The book that we have that you're reading doesn't really talk specifically about this book, but it really does use the essential 10 types of innovation model. And it's a really interesting book. This is a book that I would encourage those of you that are going to be involved in management of an industry where you have a need for a lot of creativity to stay competitive in your industry. You should read this book. It is one of the best books that I've read in a long time. And it's not a very difficult book, but it's the kind of, it seems like a pretty easy read, but when you'll want to go through it 3 or 4 times because it's so information packed. Most of us, when we think about innovation, we think about a product innovation. Most of us think about something like the iPhone or something similar to that because they're so iconic as representations of innovative products. Now, especially the original iPhone, but because we're all kind of used to them now, but when the original iPhone came on the market, it was a big deal. But there's a problem with thinking about innovation as it relates to products because that's only one of the 10 types of innovation. There are way more than just a single form of innovation. And so Larry Keeling and some other people did some research, and they basically looked at about 300 companies that have been around for a long time. 300 companies on the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, and other exchanges, foreign exchanges. And they looked at a lot of these companies have been around for well over 100 years. And they looked at a couple of different factors. They looked at longevity, and they looked at productivity in terms of PE ratios and things like that. And they were trying to look at some correlations. What are the correlations between companies that have been around for a long time and companies that have a real high price earning ratio, real high value in the market? And they found some interesting correlations. They found that there are essentially 10 types of innovation, and you can see them listed here. We're going to go through them in just a second. But they also found some interesting things out about companies that engage in the 10 types of innovation. So business model innovation, we could do a whole lecture. We could actually do a whole course on this. So we're going to really kind of hit this at a superficial level. But business innovation is, how does your company make money? And I mean, that's really fundamentally the business model innovation aspect. How does your company make money? And there are certain business models that are incredibly disruptive. An example, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of recent business model innovations that had huge impact in the market. Uber, Lyft, and Airbnb. Uber and Lyft completely disrupted the taxi cab market by implementing a rideshare app. They call it disintermediation. That's the formal name for the process of the kind of disruption that Uber and Lyft imposed. Airbnb also is a disintermediator. And basically what that means is they took the middleman out of the equation. So the cab industry used to be that you wanted a cab, you'd call a taxi cab company dispatcher who would call a cab and tell them that you were looking for a ride. And they would tell you to wait outside between about a 15 to 30 minute block of time that the cab would drive by. If the cab saw you, the cab would stop. If the cab didn't see you, they'd move on to their next call. And it was a very inefficient model because it wasn't very customer friendly. So Uber and Lyft came along, did an app where you connect via their technology directly to the cab driver, the Uber driver, or the Lyft driver, and they got rid of the cab companies. That is still having a sort of a ripple down effect because cab companies used to be incredibly valuable. The medallions in New York City used to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's the right to drive a cab on the city streets. That's a disruption that's a business model disruption in an industry that was worth billions and billions of dollars. The same thing in Airbnb applied. There's lots of people that are trying to piggyback conceptually on the Uber concept and do similar disintermediations. But a business model can be a disruptive point of innovation. So can networks and alliances. Networks and alliances are how you join forces with other companies for your mutual benefit. Examples of networks and alliances can be, for example, Target. Target is a company that, of course, we all know, and it has developed networks and alliances with brands, specific brands that make appliances and household items and fashion items. The brands are often European, and you can only get them in Target. You can't get them in any other stores in the United States. Now, you may say, well, a dress is a dress, or a coffee maker is a coffee maker, but the point that I'm getting at here is Target and the brand companies that make the brands, they have aligned themselves together to create increased value. That's an example of how you can create network and alliance innovation. Organizational structure is how do you support and reward your employees' creative efforts. That's one aspect of organizational structure. Companies that are good at creating innovation, like 3M. 3M has been Minnesota Manufacturing and Mining. 3M has been a consistent innovator of products over the long term, and part of that is how they structure their research and development and the interactivity that they encourage between different R&D departments and people, so that they cross-pollinate ideas and create new products from that. Core processes, or how does your company create and add value for the customer? You're largely here talking about efficiency types of things. How do you squeeze the maximum efficiency out of your productive process? Product and service performance. This is basically the same as the iPhone. This is your product performance. How do you invent a new product, a better product? Product systems. How can you link multiple products into a system or a platform? Easy examples of product systems are your telecommunications companies like AT&T. AT&T sells, of course, phone service, but they sell internet, they sell satellite, they sell security. They probably sell some other things I don't know of, but AT&T has multiple different products that they can bundle together and make a product system. Another example of product system is Oscar Mayer. Oscar Mayer made cheeses and meats, and one day in a corporate meeting, they said, what if we combine cheeses and meats and add some crackers and put a little sauce in a container? That's a product system. A product system is a way for you to sell more of your individual products, but by bundling them into a system that creates added value to the consumer. Services. How do you provide value-added services beyond what your company's products, beyond just what your company's products and services are? Here we're really talking about sort of after the sales service. You provide a specific service, but how do you service the service you sell? Provide a product, how do you service the product? Channel innovation. How do you get your products and services into customers' hands? Channel innovation can be both marketing channel and distribution channels. So innovation in the marketing and or distribution channel relationships that you have can be a way that you compete in an innovative way. Brand. How does your company identity and what is your company's identity and promise in the market? I don't know how y'all define brand, but I think one of the simplest ways to define brand is it's the promise your company makes. What is the central promise that your company makes? I would say that Disney's promise that they make is we're the happiest place on earth. McDonald's promise is we're a safe place for you to get a predictable burger. I mean, think about this. It's the end of school. I mean, you're traveling with your family and it's late at night and you're driving through West Texas. We've all been on that kind of a trip. It's late at night, about an hour or 2 hours ago, you stopped and you got some soda pops, and now you got to stop again. You got to stop and you need a restroom break, and you've got little kids in the car, and you're coming up on an exit, and you see a bunch of signs up there, and you immediately recognize the yellow McDonald's sign, and most likely one of the first things that goes through your mind is, it's going to be well lit, it's going to be clean, it's going to be safe, let's stop there. You know, the McDonald's promise isn't specifically that we have a good burger, or even that we have a consistent burger, or even that we have a cheap burger, though those are parts of it. The McDonald's brand promise, and this is critical to their brand, is we're a safe place and a predictable place for you to stop with your family, get a predictable, expected meal at a reasonable price. We're a safe place. That's a powerful part of the McDonald's brand. Customer experience. Does your company engage customers and give them a reason to come back and to refer new business? I'm trying to think. Blizzard Entertainment. Blizzard Entertainment, the massive multi-user MMUs, massive multi-user gaming environment. I think, can't remember the name of the game. Some of y'all have used the Blizzard games. That's an incredible customer experience. That's a customer experience that's so powerful that customers have been known in those massive multi-user games, have been known to basically deprive themselves of food and other essentials, and in some rare cases have been accused of contributing to, deaths. But the important thing is the games are so captivating that you feel like you're in another world. That's an incredible customer user experience. But there are all kinds of customer user experiences that can be improved and can make these can be points of innovation. So, that's not a deep dive into any of the 10 types of innovation, but here's what's important. The study that these people found said that companies that routinely are successful at competing on 5 or more of the 10 types, and if you can get to the point where you are innovative in 5 or 6 of the areas of the innovation on the 10 types, you're going to be much more profitable, have a much more sustainable, long-lasting competitive advantage, a significant competitive advantage. We're talking about publicly traded companies. And so the companies that last the longest and the companies that have the highest profit margins and are the most valuable tend to be the companies that have significant innovation across 5, 6, or even more of the 10 types of innovation. So companies are big organizations. I mean, when you're talking about companies like General Electric and Apple and others, you're talking about tens, hundreds of thousands of people and vendors that rely upon the company to continue to sell its products and services. And a company like that cannot just sit around and wait for somebody to have a light bulb moment and go, oh, wow, I just thought of something, and then figure out how to get it into production. They have to have R&D departments. They have to have people that are constantly thinking, but they also about new products and services, but they also have to have a culture that supplies ideas and that encourages innovation and forward thinking at all levels of the company. Long-term competitive advantage requires that the company focus on innovation. Without innovation, companies will quickly become irrelevant and they will see their profit margins erode. Innovation and creativity are critical in today's market to long-term competitive advantage.